Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I'm your host, James O'Hagan. I have the pleasure tonight to be with the man who introduced me to the Mind Fair, Mr. Steve Isaacs. Mr. Isaacs, great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Every day, it seems like every day I wake up in the morning because you're on the East Coast, you're in New Jersey, I'm in Wisconsin, and I already have about 6 or 7 or 10 or 15 notifications on Twitter. And I'm thinking really excitedly, oh, this is for me. No, it's because Steve has tweeted out his class stuff I got attached to, which I love because I love knowing about it and I love retweeting it. And everybody seems to love what you're doing this year with your middle school students using not just Minecraft in your classroom, but Fortnite. And that's really not something that a lot of educators are really comfortable with. Tell us about what it's been like, your experience with your middle schoolers this year, obviously using Minecraft in the past, but now taking that next step into Fortnite.
Yeah, I'll actually take it a step back to last year because I teach game design and development, and I'm big into letting kids choose what tool they want to use. So generally speaking, they have a pretty open slate as far as like choosing the tool when they go to make their games. I had been waiting for kids to ask the question, can we use Fortnite Creative once creative mode came out? Mm-hmm. And last year I had a passionate group of kids ask, and again in the spirit of meeting the kids where they are and being excited about what they want to bring to the table, I approached it with a definite positive attitude, but I was also unsure at the beginning of whether there would be discomfort among the administration or uncertainty or backlash or what have you. So I decided to have the kids kind of advocate for themselves. So it all started with me saying, you know what, I think it's a great idea. I definitely support it. Mm-hmm. I can see where some adults might be unsure. I said, why don't you guys write an email to our principal and state your case, and I'll help guide you through that process, and let's see where we go with that. And one of the things they included in their email, I mean, they were really good about bringing up the positives. They were really good about saying, we have other options for game design tools. We're willing, and understand what's appropriate and not for school. And, using creative mode, we can completely create games that are not necessarily violent, don't even necessarily use guns and things like that. And we're that's what we want to do. We just want to use Fortnite Creative because it's a great tool. And we'll also get parent permission, for this first go around at least. Mm-hmm. And my principal, she continually amazes me in a good way. When I first came about asking to bring game design into our school, I was expecting to have to really, kind of make quite a case. And she got it right away that it would be positive for kids and supported that. So that I owe a debt of gratitude to her for. But then with this one, her initial response was, I get it. Let me just check with the tech department to make sure that it doesn't violate any things like COPPA or
SIPA
exactly.
all the double P things we got to do.
All the acronyms about privacy and all that. And fortunately, when she researched how data is collected or not by Epic, she realized that it was compliant.
Is it really? Because a lot of people wouldn't suspect that. Gaming companies have this really, there's already the online toxicity and stuff that we have to deal with, but also when it comes to data protection, people immediately seem to think that because they're a gaming company for whatever reason, that they are going to be more suspect.
So essentially I believe she, reached out to the head of our tech department and whatever research they did came back that it was okay. I think like anything, like my 8th graders were all, I believe, 13 years old or over. Mm-hmm. So actually that would have even helped anyway. Mm-hmm. But she came back comfortable with that side of it. So, she was smart enough to be like, wow, I support you kids. She was very happy to receive the email. She, praised the kids for advocating for themselves. And again, she understood and supported them because of how they were saying they were going to use it, but then providing that it was, not violating anything, that worked. So I was really pleased that this group of kids did that and then created some pretty phenomenal games in Fortnite Creative, last year. Then,
well, wait, let's just before we go too much further on, I mean, let's stop on the point about, again, you have an administrator who is taking the proactive approach to find out about where the data privacy is going, which is a huge step forward. Isn't immediately saying no, because there's a lot of people who have the stereotypical thought about gaming and gaming culture and just like, no way, we're not going to go down this road. Those are two big things to celebrate. Especially, I still am just kind of amazed at the data privacy one. We deal with companies all the time in education who step in and promise us data security and data privacy while at the same time doing a heck of a lot of monitoring. Those being companies like Google or even Gaggle, for example, which again is a big data privacy company. But there's no way for our kids to opt out. This is actually an opportunity for your kids to choose. They want to give in. They want to step into this space willingly, and it's part of school. And it's a really different, I guess, approach how we look at how data privacy has been handled in education lately.
For sure. And I've got to be transparent and honest that I struggle myself with understanding, what those rules are and things around COPA and such. So I was kind of glad in a sense that she brought that up and figured out that it was okay. But yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I think we would be so limiting. I struggle with it because I feel that these kids, they're going to be in these environments at home, right? So my feeling is always I would rather guide them, about appropriate use and things and navigating those waters in school.
What? We're going to step into some of these spaces and teach kids how to operate in them so that we don't have a Lord of the Flies experience online. What?
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So that's my big soapbox, quite honestly, is that I want to support them because, again, it's that whole thing. Like, if we're not, we're just turning a blind eye because we're sending them home to the shark-infested waters, unsupervised. So that's a whole other conversation for sure, because the privacy question doesn't always jive with that philosophy. You know what I mean? So I personally, with permissions and things, would forego some of the privacy stuff in order to protect our kids, through, in other words, again, let's talk about the spaces that they're in already anyway.
Okay.
So we get a little bit wrapped up in the privacy stuff because it's a school setting, despite the fact that they're in these spaces outside of school, privacy or not, so it's a tough question.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy that may make a good connection. Sex ed, just because, a lot of sex ed for a long time was a very controversial thing to bring into schools. Right. Kids can still opt out of sex ed even today. Families and parents can control that. We're not encouraging our kids to have sex at all through sex ed, but it is something that we can't turn a blind eye to, and that we hope to help, as you said, engage kids in a discussion, a frank discussion, and give them true information and support them with I guess you could say correct information in that realm. It's a difficult analogy to make. I mean, data versus sex, but I didn't think I would ever have to say that on this podcast.
Data versus sex.
It's getting a little blue in here. But yeah, there's a lot of times where we look at the greater landscape and we go, you know what? It's important that we step in here and we actually educate and teach kids how to use it. I know I've seen it in our own case with Racine Unified, where we have our own Discord server for our esports experience. And that has become amazing social community, not for one high school, but for 5 different high schools all sharing together. In fact,
that's awesome.
The Discord server was meant to be strictly for gaming and bringing information and announcements. And it's morphed in the last couple of weeks where we have an art channel now set up because kids were wanting to show their art that they were creating in class. And now too, they want to do memes. Now there's that fine line between art and memes. And, I said, if you guys can guys and gals can come up with the pinned message that's going to explain the rules very clearly about what a meme channel can look like, I will consider it. And they're working on it, and they're collaboratively working on it between 2 or 3 different high schools. I know about 2 or 3 different kids who are working on this. Wouldn't have happened ever before. And this is again, a discussion we never have. I know my own kids have, I can go onto Instagram and see their own back channel, I guess you could say high school meme channel, and I don't always agree with what's posted there.
Of course. And that's interesting too, because the meme culture is interesting. In our school esports team Discord, initially I think kids got carried away with memes, because memes, the problem I have at times is it almost becomes a form of spam. But I love your idea of saying, hey, let's, like everything else, let's set up some kind of norms around this. Let's not be obnoxious to everybody in the channel by what we're posting. But yes, if there's a value, a value proposition there, like that we can enjoy this. And like you say, the memes they're going to learn to post in a school monitored channel is going to hopefully even shape the way they post memes on their back channels, because they're kind of gaining an understanding of some degree of what's appropriate and what's not. So I'm with you there. And the other thing about, like what I was saying before with the even the navigating these waters, I mean, that's what we're accomplishing in a huge way with esports when it comes to toxicity and such. Like, esports gives us this amazing opportunity to teach digital citizenship that will hopefully carry far beyond, the school matches, but into hopefully changing the culture online. So I think it's good, that part's really, really important. You've
got Fortnite, and you've already had conversations and had kids self-advocate.
Yep.
You've had an administrator who dug into the data privacy and said, okay, this looks good. And so that they took that onus off of you, and they agree that this is safe. Your kids were already above the 18 level age.
13.
Oh, sorry, 13. Well, so those are some 8th graders. So 13 level age. And now after all of that, you step into Fortnite, and what are you seeing as far as the creative content that their kids are coming up with?
So great question. First off, it's very interesting. Fortnite, well, this year, the main project I started my kids with was creating a Rube Goldberg machine in either Fortnite or Minecraft. And that was another one where it really started. It was going to be a Fortnite creative project. And then some kids started asking, can we do it in Minecraft? So my answer is always sure.
Universal design for learning. Give me multiple means of expression. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the things they're coming up with are just phenomenal. And when you look at them, they're creating, YouTube videos for all of them. They're all on my YouTube channel. I have a couple of playlists and stuff, but so what they're doing is, they're designing and creating these, and it's a beautiful precursor to what I want them to understand about both tools for game design, because in order to create these Rube Goldberg machines, they're learning, the nuances of automation in both of the tools. And then when they go to make their game, automation is such an important part that they've already kind of tackled a lot of that, but in a really interesting engineering-oriented way. So that project I'm so excited about, because I wrote it essentially for Epic. They're going to be hosting a contest. I don't know how much of this how much I'm allowed to share just yet.
If you can't do it, don't do it. We'll just, how about you tease it and say there's something coming from Epic.
There's something coming from Epic that's going to involve, a lot of great opportunities for educators to get involved in using Fortnite and the other Epic tools in the classroom. So I was essentially testing, this project with my kids, and was absolutely thrilled to see how excited they were about it and how they took to it. So,
well, I hope so. You brought Fortnite into an 8th grade classroom. I'm sure that there's plenty of educators who are going, well, of course they're going to get excited.
Well, yes, but then there's the activity was create a Rube Goldberg machine, which is also very engaging. But again, it was like, when you introduce a project for the first time, you don't know what the reception will be. Like, are they going to think I'd rather be making a mini game, or I'd rather do this? But they all fully embraced this whole idea and loved it and put, their heart and soul into it. It's neat to then get to this stage where now I have about, 20 of these produced videos that we're sharing around the world, online. So that's been a lot of what I've been tweeting out, is these, Rube Goldberg videos, and it's been great fun.
Well, and now you've also, so this year, you started with, you have your middle school students, but you're also teaching, I guess, a similar course at the high school level, and you're also coaching an esports team at the high school level. Is that correct?
Close. So
okay.
I'm very weary of calling myself a coach. So no.
Well, I don't call mine coaches either. All our people, all our adults are referred to as general managers. Coaching is too much of a pressure to put on somebody who doesn't necessarily know the games intrinsically.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So on that note, though, and I gotta give a shout out to my colleague Justin Satter is
love Justin. We'll get him on here soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, got to. He's very involved in the esports EDU community, and he's one of those. I'm so grateful. Before I even started teaching at the high school, I had my middle school esports and game club going on, but I knew we had to, here I am, advocating big time for esports in schools, and our high school didn't have a program. So I approached last year the principal at the high school saying, I want to bring this in. And the assumption initially for me was somehow I'm going to be able to do this, and find the time. I was lucky enough to be pointed to Justin, who was running, advising, and actually, again, this is one of those, the kids were begging for it, so he was willing to be there for them, the Dungeons and Dragons club last year. So I went and visited and kind of approached this with him. He's a gamer as well. And he was, all in from the start. And quite honestly, he's the one leading the charge at the high school level. I'm supporting it the best that I can, but he's moving mountains over there. And, so the high school program, I kind of defer and give all the credit right now to him, because he's, getting these kids so excited. He's having them organize for themselves, having them set up their own scrims. There are League of Legends. We had 2 teams last year in NASEF. This year we have an Overwatch team, and we have League of Legends teams preparing for the spring season. And then we have a Super Smash group that plays essentially an in-house tournament every week. So, hats off to him on what he's been doing there, and I'm just enjoying, being as involved and watching it and supporting, him there. But yes, I am now, teaching at the high school, and that for years we've had this 8th grade elective at the middle school in game design and development. And then I'd see kids from the high school come back and visit, and I'd say, hey, how's the high school? And they'd say, great, but there's no game design, class to continue. And so forever I've been wanting to, and finally we figured out the logistics to make it work this year, that I could be in both schools. And I'm teaching game design and development 2 periods a day at the high school. It was, kids, the enrollment was huge. Not everybody could get it. The goal on my side is to ultimately build that program to have 4 levels of game design up there, to have a real full program that kids could essentially take 4 semesters of through their high school career.
Is that a CT? Are you having that as a CTE credit, an elective credit? Where are you seeing
right that? Now? It's elective.
Okay.
It would be neat to tie into to CTE. It's clearly is CTE. There's interesting things around teaching requirements in terms of like as an elective, it makes it a little easier to be able to teach it without other certifications and things. CTE probably is the same actually, but when you get beyond that, things get a little dicey in terms of, what your teaching credentials are and things like that.
Well, as somebody who is just now, like you said, you have Justin who is kind of taken a big role in your high school coaching experience. Yep. I have 5 high school esports programs, and I have people of varying degrees. And I'm sure that there's other people as well. I know, for example, NASEF has their scholastic, what do they call them? It's scholastic, I forget what they're calling them. Basically, they're trying to make scholastic ambassadors, I think, or it's like a group of about 25 people. Chris Avilas being one of the people who I know is in New Jersey. Another person I want to get on the podcast. For sure. And because they're all coming from different experiences as well too. What's been, I guess, your biggest hurdle coming into this space? And I guess what's the thing that you kind of stepped into and it was like, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be, or this is not as intimidating, I guess is a better word.
Yeah. So we're talking more on the esports side now?
Yeah.
Or the
So like on the esports side, correct.
Esports side. Yeah. I mean, I know people who have struggled with getting board approval and things like that. I've been really fortunate about getting support from, again, my principal. When we do, our middle school programs are pay to play now, meaning we used to have clubs that had stipends and then that all got cut because of budgets. And then eventually they said, hey, let's offer these programs. If there's enough enrollment that it covers the expenses, we can run them. So, I pitched a game club and esports club through that. And
so just so I clarify, was it one is casual and one is competitive? That's
how it is right now.
Okay.
The first year I did the game club at the middle school, I kind of bit off a lot more than I should have. I offered it 3 days a week, so it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. It was still only the one stipend, essentially. And then I realized other teachers were doing clubs 1 day a week and getting the same stipend. And so that one, it was pitched as a game club, but it was very well written in the description that the goal is to have opportunities for the kids to play competitively, so it was kind of like a little bit of both was the goal initially. Last year is when we started really competing, thanks to Chris Aviles, who started playing Rocket League and was looking for teams. And once he called and said, hey, can you field some teams to play us in Rocket League? And I brought it to the kids. The reality of being able to play against other schools set in, and they got super excited. So that started that. This year, I actually have it as 2 separate clubs. I have a casual game club 1 day a week and the esports club 1 day a week with extra practices and matches as they come. So, but again, that was, I pitched that as one of these pay to play clubs, and the structure there was a little bit good in a sense because it was like, if there's enough enrollment, then great, let's have it. I mean, there was still some, I'm sure, decisions on administration part about what clubs they wanted to have or whatever, but they were totally supportive of this, knew the kids would love it, and the enrollment was through the roof. So that's how the middle school worked. And then when I went to the high school, similarly, I met with the principal, who I didn't really know at the time. I think my supervisor, I might have had in on that meeting also, and I pitched to him like the value, and he was also an immediate yes. So where I see other people struggling with board approval and all these layers of obstacles, I have not had those. We're still on the high school level, we still have hurdles to overcome in that, we're doing it, Justin and I are running it for free. It's
so wait, the money that the kids are paying isn't even going to you guys. It's just covering the cost.
Middle school, yes.
Okay.
The middle school, that covers my stipend. The high school, there's no such thing. We're not charging kids, nothing. Okay. We're just trying to create this opportunity for kids.
Sure.
I think the way our high school works is there's something like, if a club is successful after 3 years, then they might, put it up for getting a stipend or something like that. But we're still in this point where it's so grassroots that, we don't have jerseys yet. We have to figure out how to go about fundraising for that. We were going to play in a play versus league, which has a fee associated. So it was about the kids would have had to, register themselves and pay, at least initially. But we're doing a lot of work in New Jersey to build the New Jersey network and offer free programs. And we're trying, we're trying to organize ourselves to create. And I think, Justin's been so impressed with, I think it's the Wisconsin model, right? That has, what's it, WIS?
WIH, let's see if I can say it fast. WIH, oh, I can't. WIHSEA, yes.
That, yeah. So he's been, really looking at that as sort of a model, and we're trying to, do something similar in New Jersey. And we have a lot of, like this past weekend, we went to the New Jersey Teachers Convention and set up an esports, like a pop-up,
Saw that you guys did that. You also had Christopher Fryman with you, I believe.
Fryer, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Fryer. So I say Fryman. Yep. Well, I think that's his. I think that's
his Twitter name. And
yeah,
stuff,
his Twitter name. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Chris.
Chris is not even an educator, but is so passionate about helping the movement in education that he's like volunteering and getting as involved as he can. He's super excited. He's a gamer himself. He's an accountant, but his passion right now is esports in schools, and he's doing everything he can to be as involved as possible. So yeah, he came down with us for the 2 days. Chris Aviles was there. We had even Grant Hagan from Byte Speed.
Oh, so yes. I thought I recognized that name. Okay.
Yeah, great guy that I've worked with on other things. So they helped supply 6 PCs for us to use to set up this like pop-up arena. We had Super Smash, we had Mario Kart, on TVs, we had a couple Switches and stuff. So we created this great space. We met with a lot of teachers, provided a great outlet for a lot of kids that just happened to be at the convention as well. So that was really great to really let people know what we're doing, in New Jersey. And a lot of the people that came by that are teachers that are looking to either get started or network were super excited to see what we were, what we're talking about. We're working a lot with the colleges in New Jersey, Rutgers.
It's good that Rutgers is good at something.
Hey now.
Hey, I'm a Purdue Boilermaker. We don't have much more to go on, but Rutgers football in the Big Ten is just.
You're breaking my heart, but it's so true. I graduated from Rutgers, and it was painful then, and it's painful now. In fact, when I was at Rutgers was when they were doing all the big improvements on the stadium, and we're putting all this money in, and had this great vision of building this program. And
so it was the Greg Schiano years, I guess.
Yeah. And they built it like to here, and then it just like dropped back off. So that's I don't really want to talk about it.
Well, Steve, but real quick, let's before we get too much further down the road, you were talking about how you were getting yourself organized and where you were finding competition, and you did touch on play versus, and I want to stop on that for just a second because I can't tell you how many people I've run into, school leaders, administrators, who come to me and they say, well, and I'll say, well, how are you setting up your teams? And they say, well, we've joined Playverses. And I'll say, well, out of curiosity, why did you choose them over, say, North America Scholastic Esports Federation, or even High School Esports League, or EGF, or whatever, any other gaming league? And they see, it's almost like they don't understand the question, because the response I typically get is, well, isn't that who we're supposed to go with? And I say, no, you don't have to.
Right. We've had a great experience with NASEF, and we're very excited about being part of their current Overwatch League. The League of Legends League last year was phenomenal. We're excited about that coming this spring. Play Versus was almost our answer because our League of Legends team didn't necessarily have somewhere to play in the fall. We're finding other opportunities, even looking out to like amateur leagues that are not necessarily 100% school-based, or not even necessarily school-based, because that's where some of the good competition is for our kids. But so you're asking kind of why. So,
well, I guess not even why. Yeah. I mean, do you feel that as you talk to people about this, is that there's this ignorance about how do we even go about competition? I mean,
Yes.
our friend Jay Collins has set up an amazing idea called the Mischief League.
Yep.
And even today, I was on a call, and an elementary school teacher asked the question, "What do we do for esports?" And I said, "Mischief League."
Yeah.
Without a doubt. To
My
me,
middle
it's a
school,
good place to start.
Yeah, that's what we're getting involved in the middle school, and and which I think is a great place for it. They're doing it on the high school level also. To me, it makes so much sense on the middle school level because it gives kids an opportunity to test the waters and play competitively, but not necessarily have to be, so highly ranked in these games yet because they're still feeling their way.
Well, just trying out different things. They don't even know their role. They may think they're really good at a game, but they don't realize that there's this whole breadth and depth of games out there. I mean, I'm amazed when I go into, say, the Nintendo store on my Switch, and just the titles, the number of titles that are popping up that are download only, and they're very inexpensive, and some are good, some are terrible. Most are terrible, but there's some halfway decent ones too. Like, for example, Untitled Goose Game.
Yes, everybody's loving that. Do you play it?
I can't do the advanced yet, but I do pretty well on it. But again, we're limiting kids when we say Overwatch, League of Legends, Smash Brothers, Rocket League. True. That's it.
Yeah, there's one I got to shout out to then too is have you heard of the game Mowin' and Throwin'?
Nope, but I think I'll find out about it tonight.
Well, so last year, I met at PAX East, I think it was. I met the developers, in their booth and whatever, and I was really drawn to it because it's a game that you have 3 minutes. It's 1v1 or 2v2. We each have a side we each have the same map essentially, but our own side of it. And we're trying to mow as much grass as we can with our lawnmower, more than the other player. But I run out of gas, so I have to get some gas and fill it back up and get back on my lawnmower. I can pick up these boulders and throw them at the other person to slow them down. I get fertilizer that I could throw to grow grass on the opponent's side. And the intensity of play is awesome. And last year when, they gave me a number of copies of it for my game club, and we had tournaments in there that the kids were, having a blast, right? And it's not a title. I mean, to me, it actually makes a lot of sense for esports. It's completely a competitive game. I don't know that was the market they were even looking for. But yes, you're right. So there are so many. So exploring these is what I think we need some place to have that part. And you're right, Mischief League provides that.
And I think if Jay Collins hears what you just described, I can see it now. They'll have a mow and throw in game tournament, and then the STEM tie-in that they'll do is the after lesson, because they'll set it up in, say, May or June. Go home and mow your parents' yard without complaining. Especially those of us who live in the Midwest, and it seems like our grass grows 1,000,000 feet every weekend, and we just gotta, if you don't do it, you're that person in the neighborhood if you don't mow your lawn.
But what you got to do now is you just need to get 2 lawnmowers.
Yes.
And get kids to think, okay, you get on this one, you get on this one. Here are some boulders to throw at each other while you're mowing the grass. See who gets more mowed.
We'll do water balloons. I think Jay would like water balloons. I think that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah. Well, they will simulate boulders, but yes, absolutely.
So you kind of told us about, some of I guess it wasn't so much the pitfalls that you've had or the struggles, I guess, again, as a new coach, or somebody who's in this space, but you kind of described, the competitive landscape, and it is a little treacherous right now to figure out where are you going to go play? How are you going to set up your team? I mean, it's great that you have this team, but where do you go from there?
You're right. When you talk about the challenges, because here's another challenge. When we started this year, we had our first interest meeting, and we had a huge turnout, and we had one group who was hardcore Rainbow Six Siege players.
Yep.
And we don't really have the place for them in the school system right now, nor are we really necessarily comfortable or able to support that game directly in the school setting, right? So that's a group that would be ultra competitive, really committed, but we kind of couldn't provide for them. And while we still wanted them to be active members of the club and even possibly figure out how they can get involved on their own outside of school, but still use our club as like a resource, that misses the mark for what the kids want if they're going to come. So I think there are some challenges like that. I think there's challenges around some kids maybe, also it's new. So I think some of the players that we really would like to have aren't taking us seriously enough yet because but it's like, that's like the, like the whole chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
Like we need the kids to come in and really support the fact that we're trying to provide this opportunity, and they need to be willing to kind of grow with us sometimes. And you know what? And quite honestly, just like all these other sports, I would love to see them have this great feeling about playing for the school team and then also playing in their club league or amateur league outside of school like they do for a lot of other sports. But it's like, how do you get, because even the sort of leadership team of our students that are really doing an amazing job, taking leadership roles, they're bringing up that idea too about how that's a challenge they're having. And yet, thankfully, that group of kids is fully committed, but they know that there are other kids hiding out that we could have that, maybe we aren't getting or reaching. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that is a good point too, about how do we reach those kids? I know in our first couple of years, especially when we started with one school, it was, we had our core group of gamers. And even when I started our program in Rockford, it was a matter of get the computers in, get set up at high school. It was High School Star League then we were using.
Okay. Yep.
And when you rush like that, you miss a lot of things, especially when we talk about how do we build this out? How do we grow this? I mean, getting those counselors or those social workers involved who know those kids personally, who work with those kids on a daily basis, who most need this kind of experience is a key. There's a leader, we'll call him a leader in our industry, who I think got up on stage at South by Southwest last year and basically said, well, if we set it up, kids will know to show up. And we know that's absolutely not the case. Those of us who are actual educators, those of us who have actually stepped into a school building on a regular basis, know that is absolutely not the case. True. And even in our own program in Racine, it's taken a lot of work for us to just get cultural diversity and gender diversity. And one of the steps that I'm taking this year, and I open this up to a lot of people who are considering going into esports with this, we actually have a girls in engineering, math, and science conference where it's only for 7th and 8th grade girls.
Wow.
They go to our college campus, one of our local college campuses, and they will have programming throughout the day. And while esports isn't necessarily engineering, math, or science directly, the ecosystem is so large and broad that there's a lot of that in there. So what I asked my supervisor about is I wanted to have a session where I have one of our female general managers. Her name's Christina Wagner. She's amazing. Love her. And I can't wait to see, she's excited for the League of Legends season because that's her jam. And it's kind of nice to find a female educator who's into League of Legends. But also I wanted to bring about 4 different girls from 4 different high schools to be there. Not so much that we can sit there for 45 minutes and talk about why esports is important, literally 15, 20 minutes about what esports is, what it includes, and then give the girls a chance to play and interact and see if this is something that they really love. I
have this really awesome experience happening right now. You might have seen me tweet about this too. By complete coincidence and chance and really a fluke, I have our 7th grade cycle class. Every 7th grader takes it, but it's always, a mix of boys and girls, whatever. I have one section this time that is all girls. And again, completely by accident. In fact, when I mentioned it to my principal, because I was all excited about it, she's like, wait a minute, how did this happen? Because
That's really odd.
It's very odd. I mean, statistically, it's probably like a 1 in a million chance if you look at the way the scheduling is supposed to happen.
I mean, we're not talking 10 kids. Are we talking like 20, 25 kids? We're talking
25 kids or whatever.
You got 25. They randomly or by chance or scheduled in 25 girls into one class. Oh,
yes. Yeah. And I'm so excited and having the best time ever with this group. I do. Oh, it might be Tom. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So,
hi, Layla.
There. Jim says hi. So this group. I mean, we're just having a blast. They're excited. They're we're doing their games in Minecraft. They're all they have a choice between Game Star Mechanic and Minecraft. They've all chosen Minecraft. They're all learning, having fun. We've played a few days when we were learning. We played in a survival world all together. And if you heard these kids screaming and all this excitement, it's just been amazing. A lot of them are coming in during lunch every day to work on their projects. And it's just remarkable. And I wasn't always so sure that I believed in the need for a single sex, experience like that, or single gender, whatever. And now I'm like hooked on the idea of creating more of these opportunities, kind of like what you're talking about with that engineering conference, is like, girls that are going to go are going to fully be engaged because they don't feel like they're being, they don't
have to be a certain way.
Yes, exactly.
And we're both fathers of girls who game. Even though I refer to all of our kids in Racine Unified as scholar. Those who are involved in esports, I call them all scholar gamers. I don't gender separate, but you're right. A number of the girls who I have spoken to directly about their esports experience now, they like the experience because it is a safe space. It is a walled garden, if you will. Even though they're being competitive against other schools, the group that we have created is protective of everybody, no matter who you are. I can't tell you how many girls have said to me, "Yeah, I gave up gaming years ago because harassment or whatever."
And I can't help but think and really be excited about. So what happens is in our 7th grade, come January, kids choose their electives for next year. I really want to see if there's a noticeable number of this particular class that choose game design next year. And if so, I mean, that's got to be like data gold,
Sure.
So we'll see, but I'm just having a blast, and it makes me, I was saying to a few people, for the first time in my career, I would, for my, in an X number of years, if I leave where I am, like I would definitely consider like teaching in all girls school or what have you. Just cause I'm starting to see this, the potential for really, and it's organic. It's not like, it's not contrived of like, let me get you excited. The girls are excited.
Oh yeah. 83% of girls are already playing video games at the teenage level. So they're already there.
They need this, the space, or something. And I know that's a hugely controversial topic with esports. Like, do we offer, gender specific, or, leagues? And there's a whole lot of controversy, and I get it, about,
I don't get the controversy, but okay.
Well,
I know what you're saying though. You see the value and the importance of this.
I see the value and importance, and I understand where the arguments are coming from on the other side of we want to be completely inclusive, and inclusivity is great, but maybe we are missing an opportunity as well. And I'll just leave it at that for now. And I'm leaving it there because I'm having this experience right now. Before that, I don't know that I would have felt, as strongly that we need to really, that there's value in providing that space, that separate space, because it is, people can take either side on that one for sure.
Well, it is something that people, especially who are going to be new coaches or new general managers, are going to struggle with. And it's not just you, it's everybody. So people, as they step into the space, they wonder, why is it all just boys? Or how do we get more girls? Or how do we get kids of color?
Right.
You have to go recruit them. You have to go find them, and you have to make sure that they feel safe and accepted and included. Yeah. And kids with disabilities as well. My last podcast I did with Bryce Johnson, talking about the change that has come because of something, not as, I want to call it as simple, but just as like, how did we not have a device like the Xbox adaptive controller before that just made it much easier for all kids to play? I mean, this is assistive technology that should have been like a duh thing, and we didn't really think about it.
But let me go back to that question for a second.
Sure.
'Cause I just want to see where you're like, I believe in the value of like being inclusive and creating that space to be inclusive. But what about the potential missed opportunity? Like, is there a space for like this all girls league, or is that a bad idea?
I don't know if it's a bad idea. Here's what I have seen is that you don't want to necessarily create permanent separations, but give opportunities for people to grow and build in the experience, so they get comfortable where they can again find their tribe, they find their support
Yes.
group. It's very different when let's take, for example, let's say a one girl steps into a gaming space and immediately is identified as being a girl and is harassed out of there. They don't have their tribe, they don't have their
Right.
support group, they don't have those people. Just like our own kids that I work with, they now have their tribe, they have their support
Yep.
group, and it's carrying over into the classroom. It's carrying over into their other social interactions. So I think it's important to have those spaces so that they can build those systems of support
Right.
that, for boys and for us, it's very easy for us to seemingly have. We're pack animals, it seems like,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways anyway.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think the overriding goal is full inclusivity, safety, all those wonderful things. But I think like you say, there are times when allowing for that confidence to be built in a comfortable space that might be, for lack of a better term, segregated,
let's not call it segregated, because it's not a permanent segregation.
Right, I agree with
better.
that.
It's better to just say this is a space that's going. It's a not segregated, but segmented. It's a temporary. It's not meant to be a
Well, right.
permanent. Yeah.
I know, but I mean, by the fact of by the fact of having it, I mean, we are separating in a sense, potentially, if that's
In a temporary way.
if that's what's more comfortable and desirable for certain people. Like I don't, it's a whole, that's a, whole can of worms for sure. But I'm just back to my experience. Like right now, I just see how comfortable these girls are. And they're the same girls though, that are, when they come in during lunch, they're coming into my 8th grade class. That's mostly boys. And they're not saying, ew, I don't want to be here now that there are boys here, but it's interesting to see. So that goes to your point of the temporary, like they're gaining that comfort level, and really getting excited about it in that space during that class. And then they're coming in to other environments and being able to embrace that they're enjoying it, if that makes sense.
And I know I'm sure if Dr. Liz ever watches this, she will, she'll pull out this segment and she'll email us or message us and correct us on maybe how we presented the idea as well too. So we weren't here to put anybody down or
Not at all.
This was kind of how our thinking has evolved over the years, more so than anything. We want this to be a safe and inclusive space for everybody, but we also want to make sure that we realize that we have to grow these spaces for some kids who may have felt marginalized or excluded in these spaces as well too.
Yeah, and I think we need to be able to just have these conversations and flesh these thoughts out, because I think we get very caught up in there being a very strong opinion, one way or the other. And I think we just, as a community, need to kind of really just be willing to talk about these things. And I guess there are very sensitive topics within there, but,
Well, Steve, let's do a real quick switch, because the thing that I know you're very well known for, and something that I spoke so highly of you before too, because of the experience that you helped provide for me and my children, is the Mind Fair. And today you just announced for 2020 the first 3 cities that are going to be coming up for the Mind Fair. What are those cities and where? And give people the elevator pitch about what the Mind Fair is. I've done a whole episode on it, but
yeah, I heard that and I appreciated that. So, Mind Fair it's billed as a massive, family-friendly Minecraft fan event. It's been amazing to be part of from the beginning. We have 4 different stages. So there's our diamond stage, which has all sorts of great, exciting, YouTubers and, meet and greet. Well, we have meet and greets as a separate thing, but YouTubers are there. We have our costume contest, all that. We have a learning lab where you can take 50-minute hands-on workshops throughout the day. We have an inspiration stage where we encourage all sorts of people that are passionate about Minecraft to share their experiences and their passion for the game. And that often includes young people. I love nothing more than having kids on the stage presenting and sharing, their work. We also have a huge virtual reality area. We have a build battle stage. Basically, it's everything to celebrate, everybody's love or certainly all of our attendees love of Minecraft. And it's a big convention celebrating Minecraft essentially. And our upcoming cities that we've announced so far for 2020 are Dallas in February, St. Paul in March, and Pittsburgh in June. And there will be more dates announced shortly.
Fantastic. I look forward to those dates. And I know my kids have said, do we get to do this next year? And I'm like,
I sure hope so.
Well, I can tell you that to any parents who are considering this and think like, is this really something for me? Yes, this is absolutely something for you. Even if I have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and you think like they're getting too old for this stuff, they're not. They're really not. It's such a fun couple of days. Mr.
Thanks.
Steve Isaacs, thank you so much for being on the Academy of Esports podcast. It was great to chat with you today.
Definitely great to chat with you. Thanks, Jim.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JimOhagan, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.